Good to go. Cool. Well, everybody, welcome to the June IGDA meeting. Again, we're virtual. So welcome to the YouTubes. Today, I'm actually really excited about our speaker, and you'll be introduced to her today. But first, let's go over a couple of things with the local IGDA chapter. One quick reminder, we are IGDA Des Moines. Our mission is our goal is to connect and support local game designers and developers, artists, anybody who's in the gaming industry, just helping everybody get together, get resources that they need. So if you have any questions, if you would like to get connected with us, please go and take a look at our Facebook page or join us on our Facebook group. Everything's there on my right, which I hope I'm pointing in the right direction. It's going to be over here. Also, if you want to continue the conversation, you can always join us on our Slack. We do have lots of things going on the Slack channel, lots of conversations about the upcoming events that we have going on, conversations about our Minecraft server, which I'm really excited to see the growth on that one, anything else that's going on in the community. Also, for up-to-date news on IGDA, the parent company itself, always go take a look at their Discord channel, join the community on there. They do have a lot of really cool things going on in general. They do have some live events that have been happening, especially through COVID. They've been giving some discounts on memberships. And talking about memberships, let's click onto the next slide real quick. So IGDA does have a lot of benefits that I wanted to hit on real quick. One thing that I would absolutely take advantage of if you are an upcoming inspiring game developer looking to get into the gaming industry, take a look at the IGDA, the International Game Developers Association. Look at becoming a member. Having a membership does have a few additional benefits to it that I want to say it's something for the small fee. I can't tell you the number off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me. But taking a look at the benefits that they have, as we have noted here on the slide, knowledge, so you can access the IGDA expert resource library, information about special groups, and countless other resources to advance your career. The community, so connect to the largest network of gaming industry professionals. Of course, I'm reading the slide to you, and you can read it yourself. Also, there's advocacy, so ensure your voice is heard by governments, game studios, companies around the world. Lots of discounts, thousands of dollars in savings on conferences, software, and more. If you're into Unity, you do get a discount on your Unity subscription. So take a look at that. That'll save you quite a bit on your pro membership. Actually, I believe it saves you more than you actually pay on the membership. Don't quote me on that. I've got a friend that told me that. Also, lots of support. So give back to the game development community by supporting the resources and communities that empower all of us. If you do become an IGDA member, go take a look at there and make sure that you hook up with your local chapter. So the Des Moines IGDA chapter, IGDA Des Moines chapter, you'll see it on there. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Again, hit us up on Slack, anything. There's also a link on there for joining to become an IGDA member today. One other thing to plug before I send it over to Evie, she does have a little more information on another event coming up soon. So our speaker today, again, you're going to hear a little bit more about her, has actually helped make this game successful. So this game is called Mental Blocks. I haven't played it myself, but Tara Newton, the name you're going to hear in a little bit, helped debug this game, and you're going to be hearing a little bit about it, maybe a little more than a little bit about it today during this presentation. So if you would like to win this game, let me get it out of the glare. If you would like to win this game, we do have a survey in the description, as well as there may be a survey that pops up on your screen. Evie will probably give me a nod about that one later. But there may be a survey on the screen in the description. Go hop on, take that survey. You have until next Tuesday, Tuesday evening sometime. That's going to be June 23rd of 2020. And whoever the winner is, we'll let you know. We'll figure out if we're going to announce it. I don't know how that works yet, but we will definitely get this in the mail and to you sometime next week. So I'm actually going to buy a copy for myself. I saw some of the pieces that Tara pulled out of the box, and it's really a game within a game. And even to put the game away, you have to play a game to, you'll hear about it later. Anyways, I'm going to send it off to Evie. So Evie, take the floor.
Hello. All right. So, got a couple of things going on, as you guys saw before. Um, sorry, just um, membership information, and then also all of the links given there. Most of them should be in the description below. I wanted to pop in real quick, along with having the conversation tonight, but also talk about something new that we are planning on doing with the IGDA Des Moines chapter, and we're just going to announce it tonight. Gauge interest and get people excited about it. We are actually going to be leading a project with anyone who is interested. We're going to be actually just making a game. So, from start to finish, we're going to go through step by step exactly everything you need to do, from ideation and planning to design, project management, and feature management, as well as pushing the game out there, promoting it, marketing it, and even a little bit about pitching or getting your game with a publisher. So literally from start to finish, it's going to be a long project, but it's going to be really exciting, I think. And we're really encouraging people to jump in at any point that they're interested. So if you want to hear more about that when we get that started, which would should be sometime within the next month, um, sometime in July, we are looking to get people onto our Slack. So go ahead and find the Slack link in our description and go ahead and join that. And we'll be announcing it through the Slack when we get started there. Also, if you fill out that survey tonight, you don't have to fill out any part of it to enter to win the game. But I will also reach out to you and let you know when we're getting started with this end to end game development project that we're going to be working on. And we're super excited about it. We've had a couple of planning meetings about it and getting the structure set up, and I think it's going to be really incredible. It goes above and beyond what you might experience at like a game jam or something like that. This is a full featured game that we will be developing, and talking about every step of the process in order to get everybody who may never have taken part in developing a game or worked with a team or anything like that, and you just want to know one part of it or you want to be part of the beginning to the end of it. We'll have different ways for people to jump in, some presentations focused around that, some work groups, and things like that. So we're very excited about that. Join our Slack if you want to know more. Follow our Facebook because we're going to be putting it up there once we get that going. And I just wanted to come in and say that. So, with that being said, um, we have a very exciting talk for you tonight. A lot of you may know that we have several board game developers who have come to our talks or come to a game jam. And I think Brian and I, as mainly digital designers, are always very surprised to see how many board game developers and creators show up. And it's an incredible part of this community. And we really wanted to reach out to someone. I had the good fortune of meeting Tara at an event a couple months ago and talking to her, and she just has an incredible amount of wisdom and insight into the board game industry, how to get your game published, and or how to try at least, and as well as a lot of insight into all of the steps beyond. Okay, I've made a game. Now what? So, Brian, do you want to introduce her a little bit more?
I think you actually said it pretty well.
Awesome.
Tara, whenever you're ready. Yeah, here's Tara Newton. Tara, if you've got uh, some words to say about yourself, if you'd like to introduce yourself, what you do, and we'll get going from there.
Okay, so Tara Newton. Yes, Newton as in Sir Isaac Newton. Um, I debug board games, and what that means is I take your pretty little babies and I take a look at the rules, I take a look at the gameplay, and yes, this works. No, this doesn't work. Let's tweak this a little bit. And then as um, once the mechanics are good, then we start looking at the design and is it legible? Is it colorblind friendly? etc. So that's kind of what I do.
Well, perfect. Well, thank you. Do have a few topics that we wanted to talk about,
Mhm.
but just to open the floor to anybody. So on the chat, on everybody that's on the stream, if you have any questions, please throw them on there. We will try to get to them as you put the questions down. If we don't get it to it right away, we will be filtering through. Also, as part of the survey, if we do not get to your question, first off, I apologize. I'm going to try really hard. But secondly, if you don't think of any questions right now, again, you can also always ask your question on the survey. We'll get it out to Tara. We'll get the answers to you if you'd like us to. Otherwise, we're going to invite you, and now we're going to invite Tara to actually join our Slack channel and continue the conversation after this. And you probably have a very busy life, so if she doesn't get back to you, or if she doesn't join at all, we'll absolutely haste her on that
No,
one.
I'm already on your Slack channel.
Oh, well.
Well, let's see.
Yeah.
This makes it easier. So absolutely. So yes, please hop in the general channel. Ask away. Ask the questions. We did have great success with that last time, and we really appreciate the questions. So again, make sure you get that survey done. Make sure you ask your questions in the chat. So I. Well, I guess the first question is, can you talk a little bit about what a debugger does, a little more in depth, and um, I know you have a few props to talk about, like kind of what you do as a debugger. What is your role as a debugger?
I'm kind of one of a few. A lot of people, playtesting is something that a lot of people volunteer to do. So I, as a debugger, I am somewhere in between a playtester and a developer. A developer is someone who, so you create a game and you got it signed by a company, and then you, for the most part, you're hands off. And a developer takes your baby and makes it a reality. A play tester is somebody who volunteers to play it and see if it's working, but the person who runs that play test, the person who works directly with the developer, that's me. I'm kind of like the middleman, so to speak, middle person. And so my job is to watch it play, to play it myself, to take a look at every single aspect from the rule book to the board to the pieces to the mechanics, and then give, page after page of feedback to the developer as well as or the designer. Sometimes they're one and the same, as well as take, oh, this is what this person said, let me translate that into, my job is to make sure I understand what the playtesters are saying, and then translate that over to the company or designer or developer who's ever actually in charge of that. It varies with companies, and it also varies with games. So I'm kind of that translator, as well as I myself take a look and say, okay, I'm seeing a problem with this. Let's change the board. This isn't making sense. It's not intuitive. Let's rearrange these two parts. Now it's intuitive. Let's test it again. So that's kind of what I do, like that middle person that translates what's wrong, what's working, back to whoever's in charge.
So, do you sit down and just play it by yourself? Do you find a bunch of people to play it with you? Do you play it hundreds of times? What's sort of the
Ow,
process with that? Oh,
that just me that got all that? Okay. I didn't get any of that.
oh, sorry. I was just saying, do you sit down by yourself and go through it? Do you play it with other people? Do you play it a bunch of times? What's sort of the process that you go through? Are you getting some feedback or?
Yeah, but I think I got all of it that time. Yeah, it
Okay.
was pretty bad feedback. It's a combination. The first thing I do when I get a prototype is I take a look at the rules. I read through the rules. I set the board up, and I play it against myself. It doesn't work too well when you get a game. There are some games out there like minimum 3-player. Then it's kind of like I have to set up as 3. But usually what I do is I set up as 2. I kind of play through it so I get an idea what's going on. I have any questions at that point, then I go back and say, okay, I'm not understanding this, or perhaps this rule can be interpreted a couple different ways. Maybe it's not clear. And then once I at least have a rough idea, because I do blind play testing, nobody teaches me how to play the game. They hand it to me. And that's what I do. I read something that is just black and white print on a piece of paper, no pretty pictures, nothing like that. And once I have a rough idea of how it's supposed to go, then I ask for my volunteers, and I have a little team. Obviously not now, that's a whole other story. But but I have a group of people that I put out there and say, hey, this is, I tell them what I can to a certain degree because there's NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. So I can tell them as much as I can publicly, and then they can volunteer to come in and play test it. And then if they play test, depending on the company, they get their name on the rule book if they play tested X number of times. Otherwise, it's just, hey, have fun. But it does take a certain mindset to volunteer to play test. So you have to be willing to play a game that's broken, because there's never a game handed to me that is not broken. And that's not a bad thing. Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Every game is handed to me broken. And my job is to figure out what is good, what could be good, and what just it's just not working. So that's no. we The iterations that games go through is pretty good. I mean, some of them are like the one that you're having the drawing for, the mental blocks. I got my prototype out for that, and I was kind of showing that a little bit earlier. So let me get through these papers here. Oop, and another one, and another one. Where'd it go? There it is. All right, so I get it, and this is what it looked like before when it got handed to me. Ooh, look, graphics. That was actually impressive. And this is usually all I get, along with a box of goodies. I have my own stash of cubes and whatnot, so I only get things sent to me that I can't create myself. And then, it goes through multiple iterations to where you finally have, I mean, this has even I've also have stuff on it, but this is like the very last, whoops, that's only page 1. Like the very last little bit and all the feedback. Again, still black and white. And then I should have had this out. My apologies. Oh, you. This is what it looks like in the end with all these pages, because this will have all the graphics in there for people. See, it's got the pretty and walks you through exactly how to do it. So I get the ugly so that you all get the pretty.
We like the pretty.
Yes. The pretty is far better than the ugly.
We do have a quick question, and this is from Brett. Thanks for asking. He was actually asking, are some games more suitable for presenting to a publisher and more suitable for crowdfunding?
Well, there's a lot of publishers that crowdfund. So you mean like self-publishing versus publisher? Is that what you mean?
Let's just say that. Yeah, because
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Self-publishing it's an interesting place to go to. I usually recommend that you try to sell your game or pitch your game to a publisher, because the publisher is going to have a bigger audience and there's going to be more success to your game. There are publishers out there that I've worked with that started out as a 1 or 2 person team that have now moved on to bigger teams because they've gotten bigger, because it's really hard to be in charge of every single aspect of a game. You want people who specialize in different areas. And if you're going to take it all on yourself, you're going to have to hire these people, because if you try to do it yourself, there's only 2 people in the board game industry that I know of that actually pretty much do it all themselves. And they are the rare, very, very rare. And even they've gotten big enough that they now outsource some things. But, and that's 2 out of every publisher out there that I've met that was capable of doing every aspect other than like art, but actually hiring the artists. So as far as publishing yourself versus going to a publisher, I would try to sell it to a publisher, but it is personal choice. There are some people that do straight crowdfunding, but the only way you're going to sell that usually is maybe at your local FLGS, which is a favorite game store, or if you go to cons yourself and set up your own booth, and that's a whole nother world. So I would say try for the expertise, try for the power behind a publisher, and then but you're just gonna have to do your research and figure out what publishers you think would be amenable to your game.
I think that was one of the things when the first time that we met, we talked a bit about how there's a definite divide between, you know, someone developing a board game maybe for the first time, or they develop a few and they feel like they're ready to approach a publisher,
Mhm.
and that might not always be the case. It sounds like what does someone I feel like if you're doing crowdfunding, there's a lot of leeway in terms of how prepared you need to be versus going to a publisher. It sounds like it's a little bit different.
When you pitch to a publisher, you want to have already play tested. You want to have already had a pretty good idea that your game is solid. Is if you pitch a game to a publisher and you have not had blind play testing, which is worth its weight in gold, um, they may think that the idea is good, and then it gets handed off to them, and then they could come back to you and go, "This is not publishable. This is going to cost us too much money to redo." And sometimes it's got a really good mechanic, and they'll do that anyway. But that's the exception rather than the norm on that. So you do definitely want to have a solid product, as solid as you can get it if you're going to go to a publisher. You don't want to lose out because you didn't have everything figured out as far as, you know, getting it as good as you can do. You're never going to have it perfect. A publisher is always going to work on it. It's always going to make it better. They're going to bring in a professional developer, and that person, you know, professional developer, professional debugger, and then they're going to make that polished. If you ever played a game that it's like, what is wrong with this game, or this rule book is bad, I'm not responsible for that. No, but I don't write rule books, and I'm beginning to think that maybe I should, because every time I do feedback on this rule is wrong, it comes back, it's like, didn't change it. I have an issue. But I think that's the big difference there, is that you do need to have it tested before you just throw it at somebody. And I think what happens too sometimes is some people try to crowdfund without having that testing, and that without external blind feedback. You need feedback on the game, you need feedback on the rule book, you need feedback on the artwork. When you get to that point, don't start there. And you need feedback on all those pieces before you do anything for publishing, whether it's pitching it or doing it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you skip those steps, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're losing an opportunity for yourself. You may have a great idea that just needs polish.
So, if you're independent board game developer and you're looking to go to a publisher or crowdfunding, I guess publisher is really more what I'm asking. Are you looking at sinking a lot of time, money, and effort into finding and using a debugger and finding and hiring artists, and like what is polished enough for a publisher?
You need to have the mechanics polished. You need to have the theme can always be changed if necessary, but you need to have the mechanics good and the rule book as good as they can be. Very rare does the publisher not change something. And it could be, hey, you've got a great game here, but this theme is not going to sell, or it's overdone, or we have this theme already, but we like your mechanic. So as long as you are open to your item being rethemed, all you need to do is have as polished of a mechanic and a rule book as you can at the stage you present. That's really what it boils down to.
That's definitely, yeah. That's coming from the software side. I mean that definitely lines up. Make sure that you have your stuff going from a video game. Yeah, don't choose your genre before you decide what your mechanics are.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a
Uh,
favorite, some people do work that way. They have a
sure.
favorite theme and they want to build around it, and that's fine. But if you're choosing a theme, you need to know what you're doing as far as the theme is concerned. Like if you choose about, I don't, let's just be arbitrary here and silly. You choose about a theme about jelly beans, but you've never seen or eaten or smelled a jelly bean in your life. It's going to show in your game. that
Is
make
that
sense?
how the random flavored jelly beans were made? No, eh, that's awesome. Hey, so I do have another question,
Mhm.
kind of from the level of being a debugger. And thank you, Night Vision AV. We'll figure out your real name later. Um, so they asked the question, kind of actually lines up right for the next thing we're going to do. So first of all, what is your background, and how did you get a job as a game debugger? And then maybe to tack on to that, how can somebody get a job as a game debugger or playtester?
Okay, so a few things there. I actually started writing um, role playing game scenarios. That's what I actually did 20 years ago and did that for a few years. And also, then when like the next edition of that particular role playing games player book came out, then I would also play test that, any rule changes, and then write new cans. I call them can scenarios, new can scenarios for that. So I actually started out in the RPG world. I play board games, but I worked in the RPG world and published that way. And then as far as how I got into debugging, that's actually funny. Uh, I I guess because I've already been playtesting for RPGs and things like that, that when I got into board gaming, I was at a convention and a game was coming out, and one of the designers had the only copy in existence. It was a pre-production copy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've heard of this, I've seen it. I really, really want to play this. He's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll teach you how to play it. Let's play it. So now this is a game that they were just confirming the physical pieces. It was already going to go to print, and it had already been confirmed. It had already gone to print. It just wasn't available yet. So it was in production phase, but he had the pre-production copy. And so I'm playing it, and we got into discussions, and then afterwards we got into more discussions, and I'm like, well, I would have changed this, and how about this? And he's like, your ideas really lined up with me, and I lost those battles. He actually wanted those changes as well, and he lost those battles. So he's like, I got a new game coming out. Do you want to be a playtester for me? Oh, sure. It's a volunteer, right? And so I started playtesting. I'm like, yeah, I can get people together. And I got a lot of people together. And I did a lot of playtesting of this game and a lot of feedback, and not just the feedback forums, but emails and instant messages and all that stuff. And we are just going back and forth. And he's like, okay, you're officially my lead playtester for this. And then it was like, hey, I've got this, we want to debug that. And then he recommended me to another game company, who then recommended me to another game company. And that's kind of how it went. Now, you don't get rich doing this. Don't expect to make a ton of money. You make pennies. I mean, I'll be honest with you, you make pennies on it. The board game industry is not a get rich quick or slow industry. But that's how I got into it. It just happened to have the mindset that I would saw something I'd already been doing for, like I said, started 20 years ago doing it, and then just moved on into board games. So.
So, a quick question that came from David Messler. I'll figure out your last name later. I promise. I've got a lot of promises going tonight. Um, are you able to share which RPG that was, or and then yeah, which RPG that was that you helped with?
It went through a change, and then became the company changed, and then it became Hidden Legacy. And how I left that world is because of a tragedy in the owner's family, and he shut it down.
Mm.
So that's how I actually left that world. So I lost in the flood of '08. I lost all of my stuff from that. So I wish I could have it back. I can't even get it. But yeah. Yeah. So that was really, one of his children died, and he just shuttered the company.
Oh wow.
So yeah, but it was Hidden Legacy.
Well, thank you for
was Ohm Prime, and then they restructured the company and renamed it Hidden Legacy and rewrote it. So
Yeah. Now to talk a little bit about something we talked about, you've
Mhm.
actually, kind of on the RPG side, a little bit off debugging real quick. You've actually written some scenarios yourself, haven't you? Some RPG scenarios.
Yes, for the Hidden Legacy. Mhm.
That was for Hidden Legacy.
I did also have I almost got to do it for Shadowrun. Almost. And then they got
Uh,
bought out. They got
Oh,
bought out.
oh, that would have been incredible.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, it's 2001 and I was on top of the world. And then they got bought out.
Ah.
And I wasn't famous enough or male enough.
So actually, let's talk about that. Because as a woman in video games, I definitely have a very different experience than most of my male counterparts. And speaking to other, female leaders of companies and even developers and other people playing those roles, do you feel like board games has a lot of, I guess, to paint a broad brush, a lot of the same problems?
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
it's I ran into it in the RPG world, and I've run into it to the board game world. Um, Unfortunately, misogyny is real.
Yeah. Very much so.
It is kind of sad because I got poo-pooed. I mean, when I published, I was required not to use my first name. I had to use my initials.
Really?
Yep, because they didn't want anyone to know that the writer was a woman.
Huh.
So yeah,
I am both shocked and not shocked. That is
yeah,
awful.
yeah.
But
And
I,
in the board game world, I had prior to COVID, a few months before that, I had a beautiful offer. It was beautiful,
yeah.
and then I got a notification that they chose someone else, and they told me they chose that person because they lived closer.
Hmm.
And I knew that there was an issue when they then asked me if I could teach that person because they had no idea how to do what I did for them.
Oh no.
So I'm like,
That's a very sadly familiar story, quite honestly.
yeah,
That's disappointing to hear, but I mean, I don't know.
you have to, if anybody tries to take advantage of you for any reason,
Yeah.
regardless of why, you need to just stand up and say, I'm not free,
Mm-hmm.
and let it go at that. And if they let you go, then you move on. So I've got other people that I was working on a nice one prior to all this. Hopefully it will go to print. Um, we'll see. It got shuttered. I did another one and it got shut down with all this. So hopefully when everything comes back up again, we'll be able to do that.
I think that kind of segues into our next question, Brian, if you'll allow me to go there. Um, as a debugger, as a person developing board games, and I mean, given the current times that we're in, we can't, just like we can't ignore misogyny because it's real.
Yeah.
We are currently in the middle of a global pandemic, and
Mhm.
board games, something that you do normally face to face with other people, is not
Yeah.
something that can happen now.
Yeah.
Certainly, when we started this conversation like a month ago, it was a
Mhm.
bit different, but we're still in the middle of all of it. And it would be really great to go into some of that. How has your work changed given the current situation?
Well, I had to learn how to use Tabletop Simulator. So what the designers are doing now, are they need to learn it, and then they put that up there, and then people can come in and play test it that way. Which I guess the good and the bad is that it's making analog people go digital. So it can be a little rough. It is intimidating for some people, and they just won't. They're just kind of sitting there waiting. So that's a sad part of it. But the upside in all that is that some of the people I work with, well, actually, all the people I work with, don't live in the state of Iowa, and now we are playtesting through Tabletop Simulator, and I'm playtesting with the designers, which I would not have been able to do unless we were all at a convention together. Whereas now I can, because they message me, we get it set up, we go in, we put, on a private server on Tabletop Simulator, and we playtest the game. And so they're the designers, and then there's me, and then a few other people, depending on how many they want and depending how many designers there are. And then they're like, okay, well, this isn't working very well. And so we've actually been able to, okay, let's stop playing right now. You're right. This mechanism is failing. So let's stop playing right now. And I'll let you know when I've changed it and re-uploaded it, and then we'll get back together and do it again. So it's nice because I could play with these people that I normally couldn't, but it's also bad because in a physical one, I can just make a note, or they can make a note on a card or whatever, and then we'll just get back to the game. But you can't in Tabletop Simulator because it's programmed. So it's a new world. It's definitely a new world. And no, I don't program any of that. I haven't even tried because I don't make games. That's not what I want to do, which I probably unique in that. A lot of playtesters, um, I should say a lot of people who are trying to be playtesters and stuff like that. Some of them do it for the fun, and some of them do it because they want to do their own games. And then there's me. Sorry, my allergies.
Oh, you're good. Um, so we actually, because of the conversation that we had with you before and sort of talking about this talk, you helped us reach out to Danielle, who we're actually going to bring in sometime in the near future. And she, a couple of days ago, walked us through setting up a game prototype in Tabletop Simulator. So, coming up soon, we're going to have another live stream with her and going through step by step how she gets her game prototypes into Tabletop Simulator and how other people can do the same. Um, and just from watching her do it, it's surprisingly simple once you have someone walking through it with you. So that's
Yeah.
really excellent. Thank you for connecting us with her. I'm
Oh,
really
you
looking
bet.
forward to that.
She's amazing, and Tabletop Simulator is not intuitive. Especially if you are an analog only or maybe just a console person. And so the fact that it isn't intuitive as a user and then trying to put in a game in it and program all those aspects, it can be really intimidating. And that's what's put a halt on a lot of designers because they don't know how to do that and they don't have the money to pay somebody to do that. And I mean, when I was looking to get somebody to help you guys and to do a presentation so that all the playtesters, or I'm sorry, all the game designers would be able to do this so they could continue playtesting, um, it was hard to find somebody that wasn't booked solid.
Mm.
So, yeah. So, Danielle is amazing. She is, I believe, out of Chicago.
Yep.
And so yeah, she rocks. Yeah, she rocks. So she's gonna do an amazing job.
So yeah, to give a pitch one more time, to follow us on Facebook, go on our Slack, follow us everywhere because we're gonna have Danielle on as well to walk people through that process. But back to more of this with the changes that you've gone through. It sounds like some of the publishers you were working with have either put things on hold or
Mhm.
do they no longer exist or it's just sort of production is halted?
No, production isn't halted, but they've changed some of the order
Mm,
of things, prioritized. Like maybe a game needs, like one I was working on, the game needed a lot of work. It had a good idea, but it needed a lot of work, and they're trying to just figure out exactly which way to go with that. And so that they put on a back burner and moved ahead with games that didn't need as much work. So that's kind of what's going on now is oh, okay, we have this game over here we're going to publish after this one, but it's in a more finished state, so we're going to push it ahead and set the other one back. So it's made some changes. Nobody's out that I've worked it with. There are some that were in danger of maybe not making it. There was one that came off of Kickstarter, was fulfilled to the backers in December, and then they were supposed to be at the conventions. Well, there's no conventions. Okay, so it's their first game. They created their own publishing company. They got their own gaming company. They kickstarted the game. They hired everybody. They got it all done. They kickstarted it. They got to the backers, and here they're sitting on all these games and no conventions to go to, and they're new, so nobody knows who they are. But thanks to one of the YouTube content creators, he broadcasted their game, and people were saying, hey, if you buy this game, if you go ahead and buy this, then I'm going to donate money to, in this instance, Black Lives Matters. And then one of the designers of the game said, well, talk to the other one and said, well, we'll match it. Hope I get the story right here. And so, of course, I don't know who these people are, but I knew who Danny was. And so I'm like, oh, well, for pity's sake, I'll buy the game. So I did. It's fun, by the way. It's called Rap Gods. It's sold out. You can't get it now. So we passed it. And Isaac Childress of Gloomhaven and now Frosthaven fame, he put the word out for it, and he threw money at it as well, as far as donations were as well. And so they sold out over 650 copies. So yeah, it was, we're trying to, those of us in the board game world are trying to lift the others up, because here's a company that they were sitting there with all these games and no conventions to go to anymore. And now they sold out. They had a small amount set aside for retailers. So now they're asking, okay, retailers, if you want it, contact us and we'll try to do what we can. But yeah, that's the good news is we're trying to help each other out. We're trying to promote the games to each other. And then if people, some people just don't have money right now. And then if you do have disposable income, then you can throw some money out. Some of these people keep them going. So that one's a happy story. I'm sure there are some sad ones out there. There's some game stores out there that may not be doing so well as well. But our local one here is epic. They did, when they did curbside only in 2 days, they did an amazing number.
It was Mayhem, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mayhem. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if we made this clear. Tara is local to Des Moines and has built
Altoona.
up her Altoona. So she's built up her career while being based out of here, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. So I just so people know Mayhem who are watching us right now. So
yeah, and Mayhem Clive is of course my fave. Hi, James. He's not watching, but anyway,
get James on here. Come on.
He's one of the owners there. But it's funny because when I went to Iowa State, they started up the Mayhem up there, and I remember that as a college kid going in there and getting my Shadowrun figures.
Oh yeah,
yeah. that was my jam. Taking those home, painting those up. Oh yeah.
So we actually talked about this a little bit, Tara, before we started this. Just to give everyone a heads up, we had like an hour's worth of conversation before this. You all missed it, but we'll catch up on it. So we have a question actually about accessibility. So this is from Chris Gerhardt. He says, I'm really interested in accessibility in board games, and I'm wondering how much comes up in debugging and playtesting.
A lot. And I apologize. I'm getting darker and darker. I need to turn another light on here in a minute. The sun is going down. So that's one of the things that I look at is like, okay, it needs to be colorblind. playable for anyone who has colorblind and any color blindness. And I highly recommend, and I say it every single time, whether I'm listened to or not, that if you're going to have colors, you should also have different shapes. So either whether it's a marking and etching, if it's cards and there's different colored cards, have a different symbol that coincides with each different color, something that you can look at it and be able to tell either by color or by symbol what it is. That's huge. It's definitely something that's necessary. It's missing a lot in board gaming. That is changing, but it still gets missed. And it is hard to match it with everyone. It's also hard to put through the request to the manufacturer. Think you have it because they send you pictures, and then you actually are just a little off. So, but there is more effort being made to make it more accessible as far as that is concerned. And there's a website you can go to for that too. So
Yeah, and we talked beforehand, and if you could send us those links, and we'll put those and make those available
mhm.
in our Slack channel for sure after this. And
Yeah, I've got a few websites people can go to get some information, color blindness, contract terms, so you know what in the world is being thrown at you, and how to do sell sheets, because you won't get listened to if you don't have the sell sheet.
All right, we do have another question. This one is from RMR616. Is there a standard time frame for the various stages or iterations of playtesting and debugging?
Actually, no. It really depends on the state of the game when it's brought to somebody like me. So what I tell people is, it depends on when you want to bring somebody like me in. If you've played it with you and your family or you and your circle of friends, and that's as far as it's gotten, it's a toss up whether it's going to come to me, somebody like me, and we're going to go, oh yeah, let's just tweak this and this and you're good. Or whether it's like, okay, I like this, I don't like the rest of it. And that does happen. And the hard thing is when I give feedback is to I tried to keep the tone as constructive as possible, but I understand it's your baby, but I'm still gonna tell you if your baby's got issues. So yeah, not a set time frame, but you want to have it tested as much before you send it to somebody like me.
Oh, perfect. One other question for you, and this one comes from Brett. The question is, how do you know that you have done enough playtesting to present it to a publisher? And then continuing on that, is there feedback you start receiving from playtesters that clues you in that you're getting close to a presentable prototype?
Yes. And that's something that I don't have it in a form I can share right now, but there is kind of like a generic feedback form that you can use, um, that it asks, what was your favorite part of mechanic of the game? What was your favorite part of the game? What did you enjoy the most? What did you have an issue with? Were there rules questions? So it's kind of a generic feedback form, and if you have people fill that out privately and then hand it to you privately, and they can, put their name on it or not put the name on it, is totally up to you on how you're doing it. And then you can get the feedback and go, oh, well, I had 10 people play this game and 6 people had an issue with this, with X over here. Then maybe you need to take a closer look at X. Also, too, it depends if you play test a game with the wrong audience, that also will backfire on you. So if you're play testing a game that is supposed to be light and party, and you have a bunch of hardcore, heavy play testers do it, they're probably not going to give you the feedback you want, and vice versa. If you have a heavy game and you have people whose hardest game they've ever played is Kerplunk, then you're probably going to have some issues getting feedback there, because you're going to have major problems playing the game. So you do have to make sure your play testers are on the same level as the game that you're playtesting. Whatever difficulty level it is, you need to have your playtesters be familiar with other games on that same difficulty level to avoid issues, to avoid getting feedback issues that actually are irrelevant.
Yeah. So may I ask this? This game says that it's for let's see, players 8 and above.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, if you're under 8 and you win this survey, I'm still mailing it to you. Uh, did you help come up with that age group just through play testing?
No, no.
That was just something. Can you tell us how they usually come up with this age?
So if they want it to be a family game, which is, this is a game that they want it to be a family game, then they did require that I play it with children, which I did.
Mhm.
And, what were the ages of the children? How much help did they need? And so there were, I believe, 5 or 6 of us, I'm not 100%, that were lead play testers with their own groups. And so, because there's a lot of, if you win this game, there's a lot of different puzzles in it, and they couldn't have one group play test them all. So they had, that was even like a double blind play test. I mean, there are puzzles in the game I never saw. So, so that's something that the publisher comes up with. And there are rules and regulations behind the age choice. And then as well as difficulty level. A lot of times that age can be arbitrary. And it just, there are, like I said, there are rules and regulations. I don't work in that area, but that's a manufacturing thing. And so it's like, oh, well, what's it made of? And that enters into it as well. It's like, well, if you have to be old enough to not chew on it, then that'll change the age category. Like if it's got tiny little pieces, it's going to say like 14 and up, period. Maybe your 10-year-old can play it just fine, but it's going to say 14 and up. So yeah, that's legalities, and I don't deal with those.
No. All right. So did I already ask you the question about how do you know when it's done enough playtesting to present it to a publisher?
I think so, but I don't know if I answered it all the way.
I think you did.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk later. If not, no, we'll have it up on Slack.
Okay.
So we do have another question.
Mhm.
This is from David Meisler Kubanek. I think I've messed up your name before. So what training or certification would you recommend for people going into testing, such as UX or UI design?
No clue what that is.
So UI UX stands for user interaction and user experience.
Okay.
And basically, like when you go through a web page and you click on a series of buttons, it's usually a UX designer who has determined like this is the ideal way to go through a web page. So I think the question gets to the level of um, professional knowledge of the experience of the board game, and is like how much is it thought through in terms of like you have the box, how much information needs to be on the box, you have, once you open it, there's a board, there's a rule set, there's a whole bunch of pieces.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is something that is part of the thought process behind the game? Though I
If
think,
you
yeah.
if you don't have a good, okay, for number one, always have a list of contents and a picture of what they are. That's a pet peeve of mine.
That would be
You should
UX.
always
Yep.
have, yeah, you should always have pictures, like if you have, don't say, when you're setting up you should have 10 gold tokens. Okay, well, I don't know what a gold token is. Show me a graphic of what the gold token is. And then I always recommend, okay, walk them through setting up the game and show the picture. Here's a picture of the game with everything out there. And then this is number one. Number one says, put these cards here, do this, shuffle this, don't shuffle this, put them in the whatever is required for setup. For pity's sake, walk them through that, because if you don't, then if they can't get the game set up right, that would mess up the entire experience. So there are games where you're like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, or maybe it just lists the components, but it doesn't give you that nice graphic of a prior to gameplay setup and what steps you do everything in. Those are, if you can walk somebody through that, then that's gold.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't get those. I just make sure you get them. I get the here's what's in the. I don't even get what's in the box, honestly. I'm like, do I have everything?
So
And then you always want to have somebody else look through your rules and interpret them for you. They have never played the game and never talked to you about the game.
Mm-hmm.
You could think you have it phrased perfectly, and then somebody reads the rules and they go, oh, well, this is what I did and it didn't make sense. Oh, I didn't know it could be interpreted that way.
Yeah.
So that's another thing you got to watch for. Multiple interpretations of the same sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was helpful or not.
I think it really was. I think that the question was really aimed towards like what level of professional knowledge do I need to have in these areas, and it sounds like really an intuitive knowledge
It
what's
is.
essential.
There are board game design classes that you can take at universities. I don't know anything about those. I don't know how good or bad they are. I don't know if it's a good use of your money or a waste of your money. I haven't a clue. But there are some things I suppose that you can teach people, and then there are some things that they'll learn through doing, and then there's just, I mean, it clicks for me.
Yeah.
That I guess that's why I do what I do. It works for me. It clicks for me. I get asked constantly, so what game are you working on? What game are you designing? None, zero, absolutely none. I have no desire. I'm not in the norm for that. Usually people who do this or full developed games are also designers or want to be designers.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people probably could be taught if they had the innate ability to be able to be analytical, I guess. For what I do, as far as designing games, that's a whole nother world.
Yeah, it's very similar, I think, in video game development, where yes, there are classes and college courses, and there's a whole spectrum of things that you can go through, but it's not necessarily essential. It's much more the do you have the innate analytical mind towards game development? And I think that's one of the things I've really learned as we've seen more board gamers, coming through our doors and joining us at chapter meetings and at game jams is the principles are largely similar in a lot of ways. And getting down into the fine detail, there's a different skill set, but the big picture, there's a lot of similarity. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the most important thing as a game designer is that you have to be able to handle the criticism that's going to come back for your baby.
Yeah.
Because it's your baby, and I'm going to criticize your baby, and you probably aren't going to like it. But if you just are able to take a step back and listen to that criticism, then that'll tell you, oh, that's good criticism. I want to go in that direction. Or, you know what? I don't want to go in that direction, but it looks like I need to change something because I'm hovering in between these two places and it's not working.
So, when you're playtesting a game, do you have like a set of people that you go to for playtesters, or
I have a little group.
you
Yes.
have a little group? Yeah.
I have a little group. It's like 20 in there.
Yeah.
Not all of them will play every game. But I have a little group. I put a notice out. This is what I'm doing. This is the main mechanic of it. Who's interested? But you do. In order to play test, you have to get people who are willing to play a broken game. And if they are, and you have to actually say that. Are you willing to play a broken game? Even if you think it's perfect. Because if you have people who don't want to do that, then you're not going to get the feedback you want. You're going to get negative feedback because the game wasn't perfect. They won't be able to look at or give you feedback on, hey, I like this part, but I didn't like this part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. they might just say it doesn't work. You don't want that kind of feedback. It's not useful.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I remember you telling me about your small group of 20 people, and I assume that that is actually a small group when it comes to this because just I imagine if you need to have a game of 8 people, now you have to clear a schedule of 8 people to be with you to play X number of times, which um, again another assumption it could be hours worth of gameplay.
A lot of the groups actually do have a smaller um, number of people. So it's interesting. But a lot of game designers will go to playtest nights where they can bring their game and have it play tested, and that gets them their playtesters, their blind playtesters. So that's another way that some designers do it. I just have a little team that likes to be abused. I play games that are broken.
Oh, that's perfect. So one more call out for questions. We do have. I just want to throw out again. Hop on our Slack channel. We do have a analogs game channel out there, and it looks like Chris Gerhardt just threw a question out there, or excuse me, a website about accessibility in board games. So let's keep the conversation going in there, going in the general channel wherever you would like it to be. Um, Otherwise, we do have one more quick thing to talk about, and let me get to it real quick. And it's just a note about tips for people looking to get published. So, do you have any recommendations? Sound like earlier recommendation was just make sure you get play testing. Do you have anything else that you'd like to throw in there?
Okay, so you definitely need to have a sell sheet. You have to have a sell sheet. Some people want to they want to submit a video. Um, that's great. That's fine. 90% of the time, the publisher will go, and no, they want to be able to see in a PDF. And I highly recommend it. Just always be a PDF because publishers really, really, really want to be able to open that on any device and take a look at it. And so if you do PDF and you submit it, in a small file, then you're usually good at possibly having it looked at. But the sell sheet, and I'll put the links in you said there's an analog Slack channel now. So I'll put the links of these three places in there. But if you do the sell sheet is going to give the mechanics of the game, the pieces of the game that are required. Like if you need 400 cards for a game, a publisher is going to need to know that because that's money. If you're pitching a game that is going to require X number of plastic pieces, that's money. So a publisher wants to see, oh, this sounds like a good idea. How much money is this going to cost me to produce? I have been on pitches on a pitch team where a game was brought in. It was beautiful. The mechanics were amazing. The idea behind it was just amazing, and it'll never get published. And that's because to make this game a reality, it was too expensive. It would have cost well over $100 just to make, not to sell it, to make it per game. And so it's not going to get published. And so we had to sit there and tell that person, I am really sorry, but it's not going to get published in this state. You need to maybe take a look and see, is there another way this can be done? Too many pieces here. Is there another way this can be done? So, but that's necessary. As far as pitching games to publishers, it's a little rough now. I mean, used to be you would just you would make an appointment with them well in advance of a convention, meet them at the convention with your prototype, and which does not need to be pretty, by the way, and your sell sheet, and and go from there. And now in the land of COVID, it's more like if you think a publisher might be the best fit for your game, you need to go to their website. You need to find out their website, if they're on Twitter, Facebook, wherever, and see, are they accepting submissions? Because if you submit a game to a publisher who's not taking submissions, and they are, a lot of them will go, you just clogged my inbox for no reason. So it's kind of a balancing etiquette game, and I wish I could give better information on that in this land. But it used to be I would just tell people, okay, well, what convention can you get to, and I can give you some ideas on what conventions are better, and then you're going to need to contact this publisher well in advance to get on their schedule. And usually what happens is they put up a form, usually a Google form, that you would submit all that stuff to. And then if you're chosen, you'd get a time slot. So I will say too, if you ever, once we get back in person, if you ever have couldn't get in on a time slot and you go to the convention anyway because they said you might be able to get in, and they have last minute slots and you still don't get in on that, and then you go to the person who's listening to the pitches and stand there and hover and harass, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, because that gets told. This game, they interrupted another pitch to try to get me to listen to their game. So there is a lot of etiquette involved to get yourself heard, and sometimes it takes a lot. But I would say look for people not necessarily carrying your theme or your mechanic, but your difficulty level. You know, so you don't want to go to a publisher that's making light and easy games and try to sell them on a heavy one. So it's hard. I can always give 2 cents in that, but I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah, that's huge. And I mean, that's some good advice. I mean, you always see in the movies people just, hurrying up to the producer and they're like, put my thing out there, movie, music, game, whatever it is. And it doesn't always, work well for them, but yeah, that's cool. So we don't have any more questions, but as always, if anybody has any questions for Tara, put them up on Slack.
It looks like
Brett,
the Slack channel is already active actually with questions for Tara, so I think this is a perfect time to move it on over there. And yeah.
Oh, perfect. Brett, thanks for bringing up play test nights. As soon as pandemic happens, look for play test nights. We do co-host those with Adult Hand, one of the local game companies or game pop-up game companies. That's actually where EB and Karen met Tara. So we already got good connections going. So again, hop over on the Slack channel, continue this conversation. And as I hear in all the videos that my kids watch, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Give us a huge thumbs up. Hit that notification bell so you can know when things are happening.
Smash it.
Smash it. Tara, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
It's been
Thanks
a pleasure.
for having me.
Evie, do you have anything else for today?
No, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. That's it for tonight. Stay tuned for our presentation next month, but then also make sure all of the media outlets that we've mentioned, follow us on those, because we're probably going to have other interim presentations besides our Tuesday presentations as well. So we've got a lot coming up. Even though we're live streaming right now and we're not doing, oh yeah, and we have the Mental Blocks giveaway, as Brian is
Let me.
yeah.
I can turn on my light and show you the inside, but hold on.
Oh yeah. We
Let me
didn't
go
get
turn
into
on
that.
a light.
It's the best. It's worth the wait. You can wait here for a moment. It is amazing.
But yes, while we're waiting a moment, follow us on Slack. Get on our Slack channel. Interact with us. Our Minecraft community is amazing. I'm on there all the time playing with my daughter and myself. And get on our Slack, get on our Facebook. Welcome back, Tara.
Now you can see me.
Face.
All right. Yeah. So the mental blocks is cool. It's fun. It's hilarious. So this is what it looks like on the inside. You get all these cute little blocks, and you are going to work together to find the solution on a 3D puzzle. So everybody has their own unique, like this is what it looks like from their view. And it's 2-dimensional. Your card is 2-dimensional. And this is what you get from your view. And this person over here has their view and their view. And all these blocks are on the table, and you're having to go, okay, well, maybe my view looks like this, and then but this is like, maybe this is not going to work. Well, that doesn't work for somebody, so maybe then it ends up. So then you go, oh, okay, well then let's do this. So see how it's a different view.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I thought that this was the view because this is going to give me what I want. But in reality, I need to put this square here. So face on, it still looks the same.
Mm-hmm.
But now it doesn't look. And there's not just 2 blocks, trust me. there's more than 2 blocks in every puzzle. And then when you get pretty good at it, you can add difficulties. You can add make it where you can only maybe you can only directly touch square blocks, and you can't touch this triangle. So then you're trying to get people to move that over for you, but you can't see their cards, they can't see yours. And then when you get even better, you throw a trader in on the mix. And so they have the actual solution cards. You have the solution card, you look at the end to make sure you did it. And if you do a trader, then the trader has the solution card. So they know what what's supposed to look like. It's got a top view and all the side views, 3-dimensional. And they're going to try to get people to not build it the right way.
Looks
But
Oh.
it is a lot of fun. All of them, it comes with all these bags. So each puzzle is in its own bag. So you don't have to worry about like not having the pieces. It has a little box with these are all the bags in there. And this is the pretty version, not the ugly version that mine looked like. I have my little pretties here, which is, a piece of paper with an unused card behind it. Oh, look at that.
Oh.
So those are the prototypes. And then I was showing you guys earlier here, like, so we need to have a square without a circle. So the prototype has this in it. So, prototype to, your finished product here. Where is it at? I don't know. One of these.
So much fun. I could talk about this for a while. I will be buying a copy for myself. This is going to someone else's home. This one here. So everyone, thank you for joining.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Good night.